Mysterious silhouettes on mountain slopes, ancient findings that send chills down your spine, and hidden treasures capable of changing our perception of the past. Get ready to plunge into the abyss of secrets and legends scattered among the world's highest mountainous points. Each peak conceals shocking discoveries, and the most incredible of them await you right now. Amid the snow-capped ridges of the Himalayan peaks, rumors persist of a mysterious place allegedly unmarked on detailed maps. According to conspiracy theory supporters, that is where a secret bunker is hidden, potential sheltering extraterrestrial civilizations. People who spend hours examining satellite images claim that they discovered a strange dark zone on part of the mountain, an area that Google supposedly conceals from us. The supporters of the theory are convinced if it cannot be seen, then something important must be there, possibly an underground base where unidentified flying objects land. In reality, there is no documentary evidence confirming the existence of such structures, and the blacking out, according to many experts, may be explained by technical malfunctions or peculiarities of imaging. However, that does not stop puzzle enthusiasts from seeking explanations for every shadow. Local legends add to the intrigue. For decades, residents speak of mysterious lights in the mountains that soar upward or abruptly vanish. Perhaps these are mirages, atmospheric phenomena, or rare flashes. But for those fascinated by all things mysterious, it is ironclad proof that something extraordinary is happening in the Himalayan heights. Once, a passenger flight bound for Geneva crashed, colliding with the famous summit of Mont Blanc. This occurred in the mid-1960s of the last century. At that time, there were more than 100 people on board, and unfortunately, all of them perished. For a long time, search parties were able to retrieve only engine debris, several fragments of the fuselage, and a bag containing diplomatic mail. But nearly half a century later, a mountaineer happened upon a chest containing genuine treasures, a scattering of rubies, sapphires, and emeralds. According to experts' estimates, the value of the gemstones could have reached up to $250,000, and their origin was directly linked to that fateful flight. The honest treasure hunter immediately reported the find to the police, as there was still hope of locating the rightful owners. If no one came forward, the law stipulated that half of the treasure would pass to the municipality and the other half to the mountaineer who discovered it. Just imagine, during a brief ascent, one can accidentally encounter a stranger's tragedy and simultaneously stumble upon a trove of precious stones most people only dream of. Incidentally, the search for the treasure's owners dragged on and gave rise to dozens of rumors, and to this day, experts debate whether even rarer stones might have been inside, carried away by time and wind. A ski resort in the Spanish Pyrenees once made global headlines. Someone allegedly captured on camera a creature resembling the abominable snowman. The footage shook social networks, and some viewers seriously discussed whether a real Yeti was roaming the mountain slopes. However, upon closer inspection, it became clear that the figure was obviously humanoid and moved in a manner far too human. Local pranksters whispered that it was simply a tourist deciding to play a joke on the crowd by dressing up in a hairy monster costume. Nevertheless, such hoaxes only fuel interest in legends of mysterious creatures, whether they dwell in snowy caves or appear by chance in the camera's lens. People say that in the mountains, various bizarre shadows and silhouettes are often spotted, perhaps due to changing altitudes and lighting. Or maybe it is not so simple, because it is precisely in such inaccessible places that the most thrilling legends are often born. In one of the Chinese regions near the white-colored mountain lie the unusual Baiyun Caves. From time to time, strange tubular structures are found within them, leaving many researchers perplexed about their origin. Some claim that they are fossilized tree roots, while others say they are natural stone formations that have assumed a peculiar shape. But, as is often the case, the boldest enthusiasts prefer to see this as evidence of an ancient, highly developed culture or even some extraterrestrial technology. Local inhabitants tell stories of mysterious sounds supposedly emanating from the depths of the mountains. Scientists are more cautious, suggesting that such mountain formations may feature unusual cave passages and mineral inclusions. Yet, without more extensive excavations and detailed analyses, nothing can be stated with certainty. For those who love mysteries, if these are merely rock tubes, why do many of them appear so even, as if someone intentionally laid them through the mountain? The question remains unanswered. One story overshadowed all other legends of treasure hunters. A renowned art dealer named Forrest Fenn decided to hide a treasure somewhere in the desolate canyons of the Rocky Mountains. It is said that his chest held antique gold coins and precious ornaments worth an astronomical sum. To give it a special flair, Fenn published an enigmatic poem and embedded a clue in it, saying, "Search and you shall find." Thousands of adventurers rushed to locate the gold, and after several years, someone emerged claiming to have found the treasure. He turned out to be a certain medical student who, according to him, managed without global positioning, system or modern technologies. Opponents suspected that he hacked into someone else's correspondence and thus uncovered the secret. Fenn himself remained a man of mystery to the end, insisting that the treasure was indeed found according to the rules. But many doubted. Perhaps this grand hunt was a masterful hoax. Regardless, the legend of the hidden riches endures and continues to captivate the minds of romantics and adventurers. In the mountain world, there are unique creatures that manage to climb almost vertical walls and scramble onto ledges where a human foot would hardly be able to stand. We are talking about mountain goats. It might seem impossible to stand on a barely discernible ledge, but these animals come equipped with true gear from nature. Their hooves have a hard outer shell and a soft inner portion, capable of gripping microcracks and the stone's irregularities. Scientists have been studying this phenomenal ability for many years, as it could be useful, for example, in developing new technologies for mountaineering or rescue operations. Watching these goats graze on the peaks of steep cliffs is both awe-inspiring and a bit frightening. It seems as if one misstep would send the animal plunging into the abyss. But nature has endowed these mountain dwellers with remarkable balance, allowing them to sense even the slightest curve of the surface. Adventurers and scientists sometimes make discoveries directly through satellite images. That is what happened with Mount Liko, located in a region of Mozambique. The first to notice it was a British researcher named Julian Bay, who was strolling across maps and suddenly spotted abnormally dense vegetation on one of the remote peaks. Upon arriving, the expedition encountered nearly insurmountable rock formations, sheer walls, and steep ledges. However, once the climbers reached the summit, they discovered a secluded tropical forest and even tiny bodies of water, where apparently many species of plants and animals had existed in a nearly undisturbed state. Additionally, strange clay pots were found near one of the springs, an enigma as to who and when placed them there. Local legends speak of ancient tribes that may have performed sacrifices or rituals in such a remote location to appease the mountain spirits. In the late 1990s of the last century, near a volcano called Lulailako, a profoundly eerie discovery was made. There, in the freezing conditions, lay the bodies of 3 children of the Inca civilization, sacrificed in an ancient ritual, preserved in time. Local anthropologists explain that this was part of old ceremonies intended to appease the gods. Apparently, the children were given special concoctions made from coca leaves and alcohol, then buried under layers of frozen earth. Due to the crystal-cold temperatures atop the summit, the bodies were exquisitely preserved. One can even discern the details of their clothing, ornaments, and facial features. Scientists determined that the oldest girl was about 15 years old at the time of her death, and the other 2 children were around 6 or 7. This grim find offers insight into how seriously the ancient inhabitants of the Andes took their rituals and the role the forces of nature and mountain altitudes played in their cultural worldview. Researchers continue to study the fabrics and genetic material extracted from the ice, hoping to shed light on the lives of ancient communities that once dwelled among these unforgiving mountains. About 30 years ago, a group of archaeologists ventured into one of the extensive caves of Mount Owen in New Zealand and discovered something that made their blood run cold: an enormous claw covered with scaly skin and preserved flesh. At first glance, one might think of a dinosaur, for the tissue appeared chillingly fresh. However, scientists quickly determined that the claw belonged to a giant moa bird that once roamed the territories of New Zealand. Preliminary estimates suggest the find could be more than 3,000 years old. Even more unsettling was realizing that these colossal birds inhabited the islands for millions of years before the arrival of the first humans. As it turned out, humans wiped out the moa within just a few centuries of hunting. The remarkable preservation of that claw enabled researchers to examine the structure of the moa's limbs in meticulous detail and even propose that similar discoveries might pave the way for DNA studies of extinct species. High in the Peruvian Andes lies the true gem of the Inca civilization, Machu Picchu. This legendary structure is often called the Lost City, as for centuries only local inhabitants knew of its existence, safeguarding the secret from outsiders. The academic world turned its attention to this summit only in the early 20th century, when an explorer named Hiram Bingham, having navigated perilous paths, arrived at the ancient stone terraces and temples. Here, every stone slab is carved so precisely that not even the blade of a knife can fit between them. Researchers debate whether it was a royal residence, an observatory, or a significant ceremonial center. But the magic of the site also lies in the surrounding mountain vistas. Sometimes clouds swirl around, enveloping the ruins and making them look like a fairy tale kingdom. Thousands of tourists annually climb these slopes to connect with the past, which can be felt literally everywhere, from the engraved symbols on the stones to the narrow channels for water flowing from the high mountain streams. Meanwhile, its growing popularity can endanger the fragile constructions, as the influx of so many visitors in one place leads to the wear and tear of archaeological monuments and harm to surrounding ecosystems. In the harsh mountains of Oppland in Norway a few years ago, reindeer hunters stumbled upon a stunning discovery. Wedged between two rocks, they found a sword subsequently dated to approximately 12 centuries old. Most astonishingly, the icy air and low pressure had preserved the metal almost without severe corrosion. However, the wooden hilt and other components had completely decayed. Local archaeologists surmise that the owner of the weapon may have lost it after getting lost during a snowstorm. Perhaps he intended to return and recover his valuable item, but never managed to do so. This sword conjures an image of a lone Viking braving the extreme conditions of northern mountains, struggling to find his way. The discovery inspired other seekers of ancient artifacts to comb the area, though nothing similar has yet surfaced. Nevertheless, the very notion that relics of the Viking era lie hidden in the silence of the mountains sparks entire legends in the imagination. In the year 2014, a video appeared online that made many people question their own sanity. Two tourists, walking in the high Tatras of Slovakia, stepped onto a frozen lake where the ice was so clear it looked like glass. And those who love to debunk everything immediately claimed that it was fake. However, according to scientists, sometimes mountains produce perfectly clear ice under very low temperatures, when the water doesn't mix with sediments and remains as pure as possible. The special mountain water may contain no impurities, and a sharp cold snap allows the ice to form uniformly, often thick enough to support a person's weight. The result is a breathtaking effect. The video clearly shows the stones on the bottom, and even air bubbles drifting under the ice. This incident became an internet sensation, and in subsequent years, more and more travelers began searching for similar glass lakes, hoping to witness this stunning phenomenon in person. In the mountains of Norway, in a region called Lom, a group of archaeologists unexpectedly came across ancient hunting gear a few years ago. Because the ice in high altitudes melts extremely slowly, arrows from various eras were preserved there, including the Iron Age and the Stone Age. At first, the researchers mistook them for ordinary sticks, but upon closer inspection, they discovered stone arrowheads and signs of wood processing. The most prized artifact turned out to be an arrow estimated to be around 4,000 years old. Its state of preservation was so remarkable that scientists could even see tiny traces of the stone tools used to carve the arrowhead. This find offered insight into how hunting technologies evolved in northern regions, since in ancient times, winter hunting could have meant the survival of entire families. Additionally, researchers determined that some arrows were lost while chasing wild animals over ice or during a blizzard, when it was impossible to find them again in the chaos. In the area of the Ural Mountains in the 1990s of the last century, interest flared up around tiny spiral-shaped items supposedly found on the bank of a local river. Headlines then screamed about super-ancient nanotechnology and proffered fantastic theories of a lost civilization possessing unimaginable levels of development. Conspiracy theorists insisted that the artifacts were hundreds of thousands of years old and that they were man-made signs of extraterrestrial visitors. However, academic circles note that similar minuscule formations often arise naturally. Metals can oxidize, forming spiral growths, and the flow of the river can impart strange shapes to small objects. Questions remain, but one thing is certain. No official analyses or evidence of extraordinary antiquity have been made public. Thus, those drawn to the mystical must rely solely on unverified assumptions and secret sources that no one has really heard of. A group of Christian enthusiasts once ventured to Turkey's Mount Ararat to search for the legendary Noah's Ark. Strangely enough, they claimed to have found fragments of wooden structures at a significant altitude, which they dated, according to their data, to a period allegedly coinciding with biblical times. Naturally, they did not provide a transparent methodology of radiocarbon testing for independent verification, nor did they reveal the exact coordinates of the find, fearing competitors or vandals. The scientific community greets such claims with considerable skepticism, pointing out that whenever Ark hunters appear, they inevitably find something. Local residents, for their part, have recounted legends for years about large ancient remnants buried under the eternal ice, further fueling interest in the mountain. Proponents of the Ark theory believe that this mythical vessel truly rests on the slopes of Ararat, while skeptics remind us of the many natural anomalies easily capable of misleading explorers. There is a picturesque spot in India where a mountain waterfall periodically defies gravity. When strong winds arise, the water flows start to surge upward instead of downward, showering bystanders and tourists with sprays. It appears as if nature itself decided to put on a magic show. According to geographers, there is a logical explanation for this phenomenon. The particular shape of the cliffs combined with powerful air currents creates a so-called water spout, or an airstream that propels the water skyward. The spectacle seems like something out of a fairy tale, reality turned upside down, with water dancing to rules the eye cannot comprehend. It is no surprise that these images go viral online, and travelers flock there to witness the inverted waterfall with their own eyes, to experience the magic of living nature. Local lore says that in ancient times, people perceived such an occurrence as a divine sign, and ritual ceremonies were held by the waterfall. Perhaps it is precisely this fantastical quality that envelops mountains in a special aura of mystery. Events surrounding the tragic expedition of 9 tourists to one of the Ural ridges in the late 1950s of the last century still send shivers down many people's spines. The group, led by Igor Dyatlov, set out on a ski trek. But in the end, all participants died under highly peculiar circumstances. Their tent was found cut open from the inside, and some of the bodies were discovered several hundred meters from the campsite with signs of severe injuries, burns, and even traces of radioactive contamination on portions of their clothing. Numerous theories have been put forth, from the deleterious effects of the so-called infrasound, which induces panic, to the testing of secret weapons. Some insist that something supernatural or anomalous was involved. Investigators attempting to piece together the facts could not arrive at a conclusive answer, and the official explanation attributed it to the overwhelming force of nature. Yet for many, this story remains the epitome of mountain terror, wherein something enigmatic claims the lives of those who dare to unravel the Ural's greatest mysteries. No matter how lofty mountain peaks may seem, there are always daredevils and inquisitive researchers prepared to conquer them. And it is precisely in these hard-to-reach places that the most incredible discoveries often come to light. From age-old treasures and ancient ritual burials to secret bases or phenomena that defy logic. The mountains continue to guard and gradually reveal their secrets, making us marvel anew at their beauty and power. As for us humans, we can only hold our breath in anticipation of further revelations, which promise to be even more astonishing.